Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our third episode of Inclusive Economy. We have an amazing topic today. It's a little bit controversial, or a lot controversial, and it will be done by an amazing array of speakers that they have been here today. They're here today not because of what they think about the topic, but because of their voice, how they express themselves, what they have done already, and how they can foresee the future. So today's session is all about monetization of inclusion. It's not an easy topic to talk about because sometimes it creates different kind of points of view or even feelings. But it's very much important to discuss about how we can actually talk about inclusion, diversity inclusion, and what is the impact to the bottom line of a company or of the individuals. We will always been talking about this, seeing that from an ethical perspective of how we can actually include more people and create these overall inclusive economies and societies and ecosystem. But it's all about how we can actually measure it properly, how we can actually have the right KPIs, and what are the challenges we're facing, because not all of the things are perfect, and what we can do as individuals and companies and organizations to make things work for the better of everyone. And with that, I would like to introduce our key speakers for today. So I will start from my left to right. And I will start with Ragad Khalifa, who is the CEO and founder of Join Me. Ragad has set up this amazing social media platform, which is all about catering for women 16 plus. And they were just through the process of the Dubai Shark Tank, and they had the opportunity finally to be one of the finalists and get the investment for that. So this information is very important for us. The second speaker, and a dear friend, is Amar El-Haj. He's the CEO of Group Mina. I know him for more than 12 years now. And I can tell that his personal views and his company views are coming to a direction about how diversity and inclusion can be something which is beneficial for the society, but also how it has an impact on the business. And my last but not least, Sheila Shadmat, who is the partner in charge for Jones Day. It's a law firm, and we need to know very much about the legal ecosystem, things about diversity and inclusion. You have so many clients in your roster. You have a very strong voice also when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And Sheila is also one of the leaders in women business in the Capital Club. And with that, I welcome you. Thank you for being here today. We have a live event, so you're going to see whatever we're going to be talking about, not prescribed. It's going to be the real voice of every speaker. And to open this up, I would like to ask you why this topic is so important to each one of you. And I will start with you, Sheila.
Sure. For me, I think a lot of us probably feel that diversity and inclusion is intrinsically right. We have a sense that we should do it and that it is for the betterment of all. But so far to date, what a lot of people are finding, particularly in very large corporates, is there is not yet enough data, hard data, that supports the proposition of why you should do it for your bottom line. And I think until we can get to the point where we can actually measure the value of it and quantify it, then we will be able to propel it further a little bit more. Because any business leader anywhere in the world, if you tell them, do X, you will increase your profits by 30%, they will do it. There's no question about, there's not a moral or ethical imperative anymore. It becomes a business imperative. So for me, I think the more conversations we have around that, and the more we can engender the scientific community and economists, and we will talk about that a little bit later today, about how we can quantify it, measure it, value it, put a number on it, will help immensely.
That's a very great point, by the way, because we already have some financial metrics. We see that companies that they have a diverse and inclusive, leadership, they are around 20% more profitable and with higher growth when it comes to compared to others which are not at the same level, or we see what's happening with the Fortune 500 companies who have gone from 7% representation of women in the leadership to 10.4, and it's amazing to see what kind of companies these women are driving, which are big, big, big change makers in every industry and, of course, in the economy around the world. Amer, why is this so important for you?
First, I like everything diverse and change, whatever.
It's your DNA.
I hate monotonic
Good.
stuff. And yesterday I was on Instagram and I saw a quote for Steve Goodyear. He's a writer. Sorry, I'm going to read it.
Of course.
We do not get harmony when everybody sings the same note. Only notes are different, can be harmonized. So, and again, when you have different people with you working, if we're talking about teams or different members around you with different perspective, it will be a more innovative approach, ideas that you come up with for any business that you're doing. And when a single person is doing everything, it's monotonic and it's not gonna change and not gonna evolve, etc. Plus, when it comes to inclusion, because we're talking about both, there's always a voice for those who don't have that voice. So when you empower that, that as well give you a different perspective. And as you said, in our organization, we thrive to do that. So if we're talking, you said last time that you invited Gen Z. Since I'm old now, so since I was young, I heard a lot of people saying Gen Z or even our generation. That we don't understand this generation. But when you interact with them more and more, you realize how much potential there is and things that you were not accepting in the past, and you're realizing that this generation now have a better perspective than what you had before. So if we're talking about gender, nationality, age, everything, when you diversify in the work environment and ecosystem that you have, I think it gives you a fresh perspective. And when you have a fresh perspective, it relays back to your bottom line.
Yeah. I like that you raised the 2 points that we're not only talking about gender, although this is one of the most prominent ones because there has been so much conversation and, activities and initiatives, but also about other characteristics, which are demographics or kind of capabilities. Gen Z, I do believe they are what's going to change our world, and we must not forget 50% of the workforce by 2030 is going to be Gen Z. So if we don't incorporate them and thinking also the impact of technology in the business, where Gen Z is the one that knows best this part of the change makers, we will not be able to be profitable or going to the right direction anyway, financially speaking. Ragad.
Okay, for me, the importance comes on both sides, socially and economically. So always whoever knows me knows that I believe in completion. So nobody is perfect alone. We are perfect when we miss something that others complete. And living in such a globalized world, you cannot survive economically, socially, even by raising your kids, if you do not understand the perspectives of others, and if you do not know how to complete yourself with the strengths of others. So this is on the social perspective, and I want to stress on the idea that Amer mentioned. Yes, when we talk about inclusion, we're not talking only about gender equality. We're talking about being here in UAE. We're blessed to deal with different nationalities, genders, the people with different abilities, even, which is very powerful if we understand how to complete, if you understand the equation. And one more thing, I myself, from my personal experience, what I did is that this one joined me, the business that I started. I started that business with my students. They were my students in the classroom, and they were 16 to 17 years old, and I was 35 years old, and I thought that we do complete each other's. There are too many skills. They do understand the language of that world that better than I do, and they need the wisdom and they need the experience that I have. So we partnered together and we started up that business, Join Me, Empower Her, and I can see wonders every day how I consult them. I consult the 18 years old partner as if she's my age, and she always benefits me with her ideas. And we also had the partners were from different nationalities, like Emiratis, non-Emiratis, and that was also very powerful. So from a personal experience, it's magic.
I love the concept of the completion. And I think one element which is very critical here is the element of respect. So no matter where you come from, the age, the gender, the experiences, the way you get dressed, the kind of hair you may have, you need to be respecting the other so you can actually open your ears and see what's coming new to you in order to go into fruition.
I have a great deal of respect for the way Rahad dresses. She has impeccable
You are
choice in style and color.
You met for the first time, but you took the note that you have to be dressed like in pink and black. Going back to you, Amr, I mean, everyone can answer to this question, but I will start from Amr, which is all about how companies can shift from viewing inclusion, because diversity is a given here in the region, and I would like to be more into what happens here. Shift from viewing inclusion as something they need to do because out of compliance or because it's ethical, to how they can actually integrate as a business objective with impact on their company. And as a sub-question to that, if there are already biases or challenges that are taking place within your company or other companies you see, you don't have to name anyone, and how do you overcome this? And then you give us the golden rule.
There's no golden rule.
No, that was a challenge. I'm trying to make this
It's always
lighter.
custom learned. But I really think it all starts by ticking the box. Yeah, because yes, the topic is old globally, but in our region, if we think about it, it's recent. Yeah, maybe 5 years or a little bit more. So, and it's good to start ticking the boxes based on compliance or the rules of the group, because it opens your eye for something new. But once you realize that, this is where your role starts as a group or as a company, is to kind of change the guidelines, policies, looking at the recruitment process, doing audit for that, having internal surveys. We have something called all-in survey, which is related to Group M, that we double check with all the employees every year, how they're feeling, what they're feeling with different topics. We also have something called a right to speak. So anyone have the right to go and share their concerns if you want. And it is taken very seriously by the group. Internally, what we have done, and that might be a golden rule, is that we tick the box to have a 50-50. Yeah. If we're talking about the gender, we tick the box on making sure that there is the pay or the remuneration is equal to everyone. So there's no disparity when it comes to the remuneration for all the employees. You try to make sure, because in the end, conscious bias is there.
Of course, it is.
We're a human being.
Yes.
Let's admit. And you enjoy sitting with people that you know that shares your religion, your culture, your etc. But when you start going outside that box a little bit, you need some training, you need commitment, especially from the leadership. And you need to make sure that you continue to track this progress by auditing what you're doing and acknowledging, adapting, and believing in diversity and inclusion. If you don't believe as a EXCO group, forget it. It's a top-down approach.
We see many times people and leaders say, oh, we're going to do this and that, and they make this kind of big announcements, but then at the end, you see that this is not being into execution. So this is another, I think, example of promises being made, but under-delivering in the outcome. And this sometimes may be happening because it's being forgotten or it's being deprioritized because of what is happening within a company. They're pushing for short-term goals. And I think we're through a time at the moment where many companies are trying to minimize or cost-cutting because there is the integration of AI and the fear of what's going to happen. So we're going to touch base on that again, because you, Amar, come from an industry where you are doing great things as an organization, but overall, the advertising industry is well positioned when it comes to inclusion of women into the workforce, when there are other industries so much male dominated, and you don't have to know that. You just go on the top 100 companies in the region, you may see 3 female leaders out of the 100, and you say, what's happening? We don't have a voice. So there are many things that needs to happen. I will come back to you for that. Sheila, you deal with so many clients from abroad and in the region. And I would like you to take the view for how your clients are addressing the inclusion part for the benefit of their business.
Sure,
Okay?
absolutely. And we see it a lot. I'm very fortunate to work at a firm that has a lot of global clients, major global corporates that have operations all over the world. And a lot of those companies, more often than not, when they send out an RFP to their law firms, maybe when they send out an RFP to their consultants and their advertising agencies, they mandate or require some amount of diversity in the composition of the team that is being presented to them. And I think that's a great way to try to move the needle a little bit. Those companies who recognize that when they go outside the company and they want diversity of thought, they want someone to present to them a solution that's different than the solution they could come up with themselves. Almost by definition, they need that team to have diversity of thought, and diversity of thought very much more easily comes with diversity of people. So we see it a lot, and it's I think a very nice way to make sure that a company is getting the best service it can from its outside consultant.
Can I add a question here,
Of
which
course.
I'm not sure if there is an answer for that. Is there a legal framework that obliges your clients to submit these prerequisites to their partners? Is there a way you can actually officialize and legalize, if you can say this word?
Yeah, it's
So people can actually do that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, when we look at legislation around the world, it's different everywhere. Every country has a very different framework for what it requires or doesn't require in terms of parity of pay, in terms of discrimination or non-discrimination in the workplace and hiring choices. So in many ways, when you have a big global corporate, the bigger change comes from their actions than it does from any individual legislation in any country, because legislation all over the world is all over the map, quite literally. And so I think big corporates, like a lot of things in the world, are actually driving the change in that way, probably faster than legislation can, because if you look, it's a little bit different everywhere.
Okay. And do you think we'll be able to have any kind of alignment between different kind of regions? I mean, we are a very unique region, Middle East.
Yeah.
Because we think the Middle East have different countries, we have a different way of operating.
I mean, it's a very interesting question, and you have to look at it through the prism of the globe.
Yeah.
Because if we have any particular company's New York office, and you look at the makeup of their personnel, and you say we need diversity of gender, diversity of religion, diversity of culture, but then you look at that same company's office in Dubai, diversity for them means hiring more white males.
Yes.
Yeah.
True. Exactly. They're different.
So it's not a very easy prism through which you could, I think, define it for everyone in the same way everywhere.
Okay. Let's keep that at the back of our head to discuss about that maybe later. Ragad, you went through, I mean, I've seen your journey setting up and funding your own company, the kind of team you were together, discussing about your business plan. Then you went to the big shift to pitch yourself into a broader audience and publicly on TV. how your commitment, not the nature of your business, not what you were pitching about, how your commitment, your team's commitment actually helps you to raise the funds and get a financial commitment to what you're going to be delivering. Because your numbers were very small, and we have so many social media platforms that can actually cater over. But what was the unique thing from you and your team that actually helped you raise the fund?
Okay, that's a nice question. If you ask me, let me share the personal story. Before going to Shark Tank, we're a company that we didn't start generating revenue yet at that time when we went to Shark Tank. So we had discussions. Shall we go for it, or shall we wait for the next series, let's say? And then we thought that, no, let's do it. Let's say get out of our comfort zone, and it'll be no harm. Anyways, we'll benefit from the experience. And I remember that I told them something. I told them, we're not there to sell the idea. We're there to sell our team, ourselves, how we are as a team committed. And I told them, I know we'll impress them with the team. And they said, you're being too confident. I told them, let's do it. Let's see, because I like the energy. I believe in the energy. And then when we went there, even if you watch the episode, the way we presented, yes, we tried to show the bond, because for me, that was the competitive advantage of our idea. And then when we got the investment, the investor literally said, I'm buying the team. He said the same sentence that I mentioned before. He said, I'm buying this energy. I'm buying this diversity. I'm buying the passion, how you believe in your idea. And that's when we said that this is the clear monetization of inclusion. So it was the T-bond was monetized into an investment and fundraising opportunity, which is maybe a dream for too many people at that early stage. And I'm telling you, it's not promotion. It's in reality. This completion and this change of perspectives is very, very, very important. The diversity of perspectives, because as Sheila mentioned, too many times diversity for me, or my own point of view, is different than yours, and diversity of ideas is easily turned into monetized diversity of, let's say, assets and diversity of outcomes, which is what is needed, especially in the UAE. You cannot let's say, I don't want to say you cannot only survive. You cannot excel if you do not let's say satisfy the demand of different more than 120 nationalities. And you're talking about 3 active generations in the UAE. The 3 generations are very active, and we're talking about a government that believes in inclusion, even in the national agenda. Let me stress on this idea. In 2021, the first pillar of the national agenda was inclusive, having an inclusive economy, inclusivity and coherence in the society and the economy. And since that time, I'm coming from an education sector as well, the government was very successful. They started breaking down that agenda, starting from young age, starting from schools and education. So when citizens of the UAE understand the importance of inclusion, starting from schools, moving to universities, corporates, and entrepreneurs themselves, then you can say that the society is being bonded, and it's easily converted into money. The GDP of UAE since 2021, since this agenda was published and really worked on, was increased from 4.7% to 7.9%, like 4% in 1 year. Once inclusion was promoted. And that's why I'm telling you, from a smaller scale to a bigger scale, it's successful.
And even before 2021, I think the UAE had the highest percentage of female ministers in its government than any other country in the world. And when you set a framework like that, when you have the diversity at the highest levels of the government, that's when you get that language in that kind of legislation.
Agree with that. And another one element that I think it's reflecting the strategy of the region here, of the government here, is that the growth of female entrepreneurs in the region is the highest in the world.
Yeah.
This doesn't mean we have the biggest number of female entrepreneurs, but it shows the intention. It shows that a foundation is coming up. But let's keep the government at the moment out of the picture, and I want to focus on the three of you and say that if it was not your personal commitment and your personal focus on the matter, things do not change. And what I want to say with that is that you come from a very small company, you just set up, you don't have the fundings, but your belief into how you're going to be working on inclusion, of course, diversity, because we're in this region, and how you can make this a product that can actually be of benefit financially and socially. It's important that here we have two big companies.
Yeah.
Okay, you have very different scale, very different structure, very different governance. However, you three as individuals, you are leading on that. And I want to say that if you don't have the power of one, the power of the person believing in something and getting the others together, things do not change. I love the KPIs, I love the tick the box, I love everything, but someone needs to lead the way. And with that, I want to come to you, Amer, and think about, have you seen, and you can say, Eleni, I have not seen them, how the inclusion has been translated into positive financial impact on your business? Have you managed to measure it? Have you managed to see that in one business or in one project, or not at all yet? Because we talked about a KPI before and measurability.
No, we do.
Okay,
we do actually.
Very nice.
Yeah. Maybe I don't have the numbers, but we do realize what's the impact on our bottom line and how's the impact on our clients happened. So I joined the group very recently, almost 9 months. So we if you want, we audited the entire team that exists. And again, we looked at not only genders, we looked at genders priority, we looked at age, and we looked at nationalities. If I look at the gender now, for example, we are at 50-50 when it comes to the entire population, but unfortunately we are at 42 when it comes to EXCO, and objective by end of year will become at 50% female versus male. We were, I think, the first media agency to get 2 senior people, women, who are leading our buying and trading department. Usually it's led by men.
Yeah.
I was one of them
I
before.
know.
We were afraid of this.
Exactly. And literally, when I've done that, I asked the 2 ladies to join the group, they were kind of scared because the majority of the suppliers and the majority in the other agencies, they're men. At the same time, the market was like, are you sure you're doing this? How are they gonna? I was like, don't worry. And now we realize that profitability is higher. Clients have a return on their investment much, much higher than it used to be, almost 40%. Yeah, exactly. And everyone loves them. Yeah, so everyone and I see that there is a future and potential for them. As well, we recruited in the past 6 months almost 100 new people who are purely Gen Z, and we are at 21% now.
Very nice.
Yeah, and this is where they brought a totally new perspective. As well, we're not. In our industry, we always say that you need a fresh perspective, young people, because we're innovative. People doesn't understand technology, etc. We don't believe in that. Age doesn't matter. My father-in-law knows about TikTok and Snap and whatever better than me.
It's a mindset. It's a mindset. It's a mindset.
And he knows about technology. He can flip. And my youngest son, 45 years old, he knows how to change things on my phone. So age doesn't matter anymore. It's this, I think, yes, it is a mindset. It's a perception that age matters. Go back to nationality. We are living in Dubai. but we cater for the entire MENA. So if you don't have a diverse nationality percentage in the group, because our offices is spread in all the markets, or almost 11 markets, and each market would require a diversified nationalities that works in that particular market, because you need to understand, if you're living in Dubai, you need to understand all kind of culture, all kind of religion, all kind of lingual, jokes, whatever, for you to be closer to client. And this is where, honestly, we, in the past 6 months, we managed to get 10 new clients on board. A relationship, good business, if you want better deals, different people. And going back to what Sheila, or the question that you addressed to Sheila, if you can legalize the diversity and inclusion, it's happening indirectly. In any chemistry meeting that you have with clients, if your room is not diversified from gender, age, etc., they look at you differently and you score low. So which tells you that clients are kind of mandating that diversity when it comes to all partners that they want to work with. I'm not gonna lie to you, in one of the meetings, I was there and we were almost 9 men and 2 women, and I felt awkward. And we put a mandate on that particular department that if you don't do 50-50 in the coming 5 months, you have an issue. And this is where, going back, that yes, it should come up, down, and you need to believe in the diversity and in the inclusion for you to make sure that the group, your company, etc., is following the right path, because the outcome and the if you want, the perception, and it all boils down to the bottom line that, that you're gonna have.
Of course. How do you communicate this to your shareholders? Because you have shareholders that are at the global level. How do they understand the changes you're making and the decisions you're taking in a way that they can see, of course, the benefit in the current financial value, but also the future financial value? How do you communicate that?
When they see 10 new businesses all of a sudden with a 40% growth,
Numbers talk. That's a good thing.
That's number one. Number two, reputation. Reputation and brand recognition for your agency, for your group, for your company is worth anything. And since we start making that change, we felt that retention is much higher. People would like to join the group. For the sake of whatever you're promoting and the changes that you're making. We're attracted a lot of good talent in the market, and in our industry, talent is sometimes scarce. And nowadays, we hear if you want, the echo in the market that we want to join group M because they're more diverse, they have younger people, the culture is becoming young, everyone's voice is heard, and you can say whatever you want in the group, not necessarily if it tallies with the direction, but you have the right to say it, and it's debatable. It's debatable. The objective, and we were just discussing that in the car, is that to get to a point that you have the right to come and say whatever you have about the business, about the culture, about whatever we're doing. But keep in mind, you might be right, you might be wrong. And I might be wrong as a CEO, and I might be wrong. I'm going to listen and change if I'm wrong. And I'm going to convince you, try to convince you if you're wrong with the approach.
It's a great point. And I think that the part of how the culture is for a company, it's so easily being known among the people who would like to join a company or not, or already working over there. And sometimes we forget that a good culture is not only the nice benefits and some of the stuff you give over as as freebies, but it's that you feel it in your bones that you want to be working for this company, being part of that, and say, I am the X person working for this company.
Alini, can you allow me to add on
Of course, I can allow you.
You mentioned a very important point about having Gen Z and calling each other. For me, I do deal with Gen Z a lot, the type of my work and even in my company. It was being promoted recently that there is a gap between Gen Z and other generations. And this thing, it's being, it's the fast, they're the tech people, as what you mentioned, and all the generations, the millennials are different and so on. However, this sometimes has a negative impact on Gen Z themselves. They don't see themselves with other generations. So when you do such a thing, and when they get closer to us as millennials and other generations, they find out that yes, it works. Whatever is being promoted on the social media is not true, but they always prefer to call each other's. It's much better to have a bunch of Gen Z, for example, in any organization than having one. They'll feel more productive. They'll feel more, you know what I mean? So always, and it can be, let's say, you can easily, if you bring few of them, you check the impact and you'll see how impactful they are. They can easily cope with other generations. They have this ability, and you'll see that they'll be the promoters for you. Yeah. They'll attract the customers. They'll attract investors, even investments.
Agree.
And they'll attract other Gen Z as legacy members.
No objective is for the old generation to cope with them, not that because they're very adaptable.
Yeah, they're very adaptable.
Us that we need to understand them well.
Again, it's mentally. It's being promoted. So once we deal with them, and I believe that you get younger as long as you deal with younger people.
Oh, that's for sure.
Exactly. Your mind, your thoughts, your energy always stays up to the level of those who you're surrounded by. So it's even beneficial for us.
What I'm trying to say is that I always encourage our senior people to engage more with them and kind of stop complaining that, as you said, they're the tech, they like to work alone. Which when you do the research and you interact with them, on the contrary, they like to have one-on-one interaction. Their interest is even much better than us.
It's true.
And their thinking, their love of their life is very interesting for us.
True.
And this is where we're trying as much as possible to adapt to them versus asking them to walk our steps, which sometimes I feel we were wrong. They're right.
Yeah, same. Too many times.
I love this conversation because Gen Z is very deep in my heart, and I do learn a lot from them. We can have a separate section about that because none of this has been very important here in Capital Club. We had 2 sessions with Gen Z, and you could see the conversation between the other generations and them, and how we see things which are not actually the ones we see through the distribution of media and the news. Mm-hmm. Going back to inclusion and financial benefits. I will come to you first and then maybe to you, Ragad, about how inclusion can actually, diverse inclusion, can actually open up new markets for a brand, for a business, in a way they wouldn't see that before if they were not going to this direction.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting, and it goes back to, I guess, what we were saying towards the beginning of the conversation is about how you actually quantify it and measure it and value it. And I think a lot of the conversation, and maybe why you said it's a controversial topic, is I see a lot of data and I see a lot of conversation about that data regarding cause and effect. So you have a company who's been very diverse, profits go up, they're doing better. Sometimes there is a conversation about, well, what was the cause and effect? You've got an effect.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer. You haven't proved causation, right? I mean, maybe it was something else. Maybe it was something else. Both ways. A company that tanks because they've had a greater diversity doesn't necessarily mean that they've done more poorly because of the increased diversity. So proving the cause and effect of the data, I think, is what I was thinking about at the beginning of the conversation. If we can better find out ways to monetize that value, to put a value on the diversity with the cause and effect piece of the data, it helps you to open up markets. You figure out where in the world you are not as present or not as active or not as profitable, why. Your examples of how you've increased productivity and actual bottom line numbers of contracts and clients is great. And looking at that data and figuring out the how and the why. I feel very lucky in my own personal law firm. We have the highest percentage of female equity partners of any law firm in the world. And it's not by accident. It's because the way that we value the metrics of how to go from associate to partner, we include a lot of the soft skills that people will say women are really good at.
True.
And in other companies where those soft skills aren't exactly measured or exactly valued with respect to promotion, you see that they have a harder time promoting women. These soft skills, if there's no row or line to put it into your review for promotion purposes, it doesn't get valued. Those women don't get promoted. So I think in terms of looking at the value and how to quantify it, I think a lot of companies could benefit from that. Just looking at the skills of their workforce, how to value the soft skills that are not currently being valued, and making sure they are being included as part of promotion.
Very nice. So we talk about how companies internally, they can actually change the structure and the way they operate to approach new markets. Ragat, allow me to go to Amr, because this has also to do with how brands communicate outwards to the consumers. And we've seen major changes, like luxury industry is addressing younger generation because they see there is an interest of younger generation to invest money to buy luxury products. And the whole thing have changed that who is a spokesperson of every brand, let's say Louis Vuitton or Dior. We've seen a major change of the spokespeople, or how companies where they used to be addressing female consumers, they changed completely of the perfection of the perfect image, and they incorporated shapes and bodies of all kinds. Or how cosmetics now are for men as well, not only for women. So we have a kind of different approach, and how when you take care of your face is not only a female need, it's a male need as well. So you open up the industries in a way that is, you never thought that 10 years ago. I'm not talking about 100 years ago. Amr, how do you see this being part of the strategy of the brands and the companies in a way this becomes strategic decision and not just for the benefit of the short term to get something that you haven't grasped until now?
Yeah, I'll tap on two topics. Number one, the if you want attracting new markets, and the other one on the, so on attracting, adding to Sheila what she's saying, that because we cater for all markets, so we book campaigns for the US, for entire Europe, India, China, etc., all from UAE. And maybe we're lucky. We are our headquarters. It's UAE and Saudi, and it's attracting a lot of nationalities. And when you have an Indian person, when you have a British person, when you have a Chinese person on your team, they will know exactly the culture, the specificity of those markets. So while you are sitting in Dubai, you can have a perfect campaign targeting Chinese, Indian, British, French, etc., etc. So this is where, when you're having diversity of people in your team, it will open up markets for you, even when you're sitting abroad. Going back to the other topic that you're mentioning, definitely, this is happening recently for the past maybe 3 years. When we're talking about women in advertisement, it's not about this idealistic woman figure that is there, because given the fact that we started going out of this perspective that if I'm not acting this way, or if I'm not behaving this way or eating this way, that then I don't belong. On the contrary. And this is where, from our end as advertisers and agencies, we started including all kind of, if you want, type of people. So this is why you will see, for example, ads for some cosmetic or CPG product, women playing football. Or sometimes women doing the what used to be perceived men activity. Add to that, for example, now given Gen Z are growing and they're becoming the, if you want, the stakeholders of every single thing, this is where we're including them in most of our campaigns. We had a cooking product that we're promoting recently. So we moved from the image of the mom sitting in the kitchen making the food to the daughter and the son that are from the Gen Zs, 15 years old, helping her and she teaching them how to do it. Because we know in a couple of years, these people, these guys are gonna be at university and they're gonna go home do their own cooking. Same for detergents. Same for everything. Yeah. So as well, if you look at, it's changing a lot because our life is changing. Yeah. If you look at the business, we're working a lot remotely. Yeah. So how would you do diversity when it is remote working? How you connect each other together, or all the people together, in order to make sure that it's inclusive culture, when everyone is sitting in somewhere working. So there's a lot of new things that is happening. Some of it thanks to COVID. Unfortunately, COVID happened, but thanks to COVID, we learned a lot of things that we're adapting to. So our communication have totally changed, including so many diversified figures, if you want, within our communication.
I agree with you, and it's very important to see that when it comes to communication advertising, there's a huge responsibility how you shape the way that people behave, because it's this way that you actually promote specific models that you say, oh, no, you didn't tell me in a very formal conversation, but actually shapes behavior without even thinking about that.
I think more so than any other industry in the world, it's media, absolutely.
Media and movies, by the way.
Movies
now, you see actors that are not this image actors, and they're acting even better than anyone else.
And it's having more, and it's being more important than any other time, because the time, if you watch how media is controlling our lives or is interfering into our lives, it's more than any other time.
Because our hands have turned into phones.
Exactly. So that's very important.
Most of the time we spend here, I know.
And about females, because also talking about females, he's saying that you're promoting females and different figures. The female herself, let's say the psychiatric formation of a female, we get in, let's say, motivated easily, and we get inspired easier maybe than men. So when media plays such a role in showing a model of a female who's not perfect maybe, but who's very close to certain females with their challenges and so on, and who's doing something, and this is what we try to do at Join Me also with our success stories, you're unleashing the power of too many females who are just sitting at home, not, let's say, especially in that culture, so many of them do not believe that they say I can do something, but they don't know how. So media plays a vital role in unleashing their potential. Yes, I can do it. If she did it, I'll do it. And then she strives, or she gets out of her comfort zone. And this helps everyone. And it turns to help her family. It turns to help the corporate that she's joining and the economy at the end of the day.
And it's so different. I mean, the generation that you are speaking to now is very different. If I saw a cooking ad, it would speak to me not at all. I've never cooked. If I see an ad of women playing soccer, not football, because I'm American, this is my diversity of thought. If I saw a woman playing soccer, that speaks to me.
They can play American football, by the way.
And then also there have been women who have been kickers, I know. But so it's different. I mean, the people who we are speaking to now is very different than we who were spoken to.
Correct, The communication is different.
Advertising helps to address unconscious bias in a way that is not even outspoken, but you make it, you filter it, and you actually work on that in a very, very subtle but very effective way. We talk about monetization of inclusion, and I want to ask you, are there challenges or risks in thinking about how to monetize inclusion, which on the other side, it should be an ethical approach and a compliance approach, and something which is good for the community? So you have two extremes. How can we see those two extremes that they don't collide? And what are maybe the risks of focusing only on monetization? I will start
Yeah.
from you, Sheila. This is a question for everyone, by the way.
I mean, for me, the challenge is I will go back to behavioral psychology.
Yeah.
I love behavioral psychology
Yeah.
because it really, really educates us about how we as human beings think. And that there's no generational divide there because we're all actually the same species. Sometimes we think Gen Z is a different species, but they're actually the same. We're all the same species. And as human beings, we all behave and think in the same way. And I'm sure people have read Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. They're two very famous behavioral psychologists that have written a lot of very interesting books. But two behavioral psychology elements that I think are in play all the time when talking about challenges is loss aversion theory and the status quo bias. So human beings, and there have been so many studies, human beings feel the pain of loss 2 times stronger than they feel the pleasure of success.
Yeah,
That's true.
true.
And then the status quo bias basically says if everything remains the same, then you feel like you haven't lost something. If something changes, you actually feel like it's a loss before you realize that it's a benefit. So when we're talking about diversity, inclusion, changing maybe the face and the makeup of the workforce, there are a group of people who will feel that change is not good, and that will feel if that there's a zero-sum game. If I give to you, that means I'm taking away from me.
Yeah.
So understanding how in your own workforce, your own company, you can overcome those natural biases. And it goes both ways. I'm not saying it's a male or female problem.
No.
We are all human beings and we will
Exactly.
all feel
Yeah.
this way, regardless. So figuring out how we can make sure as human beings, we recognize that anything that is done is actually for the benefit of all and not a loss for me, but a gain for you is really helpful.
I think
It's a big challenge.
It's a big challenge, and I like that you put that on the table because this also connects to how we define success. But success is not only one thing, like in a box. And sometimes when we think that we're losing part of the successes that we have already achieved or the ones we can actually achieve, it creates a defensive mode, which actually becomes an aggressive one to change in the way to make things better for everyone, even for yourself.
Yeah.
Amer, risks of focusing on monetization are there? And if yes, how do you overcome?
No, of course. But if you focus only on monetization and ticking only boxes for diversity, it's no longer diversity. We're focusing on one thing.
I agree with you.
We wanna be diverse. So
Touché, mon frère.
Yeah.
So look, personal opinion, everything that goes in one direction is a failure.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you and we're seeing it sometimes that when there is one topic that everyone is focusing on and going towards it, you have the counter reaction much bigger than whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same. If we're only focusing on the bottom line out of this inclusion or diversity, you will forget about the essence of this right cause that you're trying to bring on table. If it's about women empowerment, if it's about empowering people to have their voice, if it's about including everyone into a certain conversation. And the more you focus on the bottom line and the financials of it, you start forgetting about that. Number one, in my personal opinion, I didn't encounter it, but I think that automatically the inclusion and the diversity will no longer exist because your focus is somewhere else. At the same time, people will start not believing in you. And we were talking that as Group M, we attracted a lot of people that because they believe that this group is giving them that inclusion and the diversity. And if you're only doing it for monetizing it, I think people will feel like you're not genuine anymore. So why do we need to come here and join you? At the same time, because it generates a lot of brand equity, brand recognition, and so you're gonna lose it. And the minute you lose it, you're losing everything.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's a big risk, and this is where the most important part is to focus on the equity, diversion, and inclusion, because it will generate the revenue, not vice versa.
I couldn't agree more with you, Amr.
I agree with Amir big time. I wanted to mention that I think the biggest challenge is unpacking this value. Like now it's being, you don't have to let it be over promoted to an extent that you say, for example, female empowerment is now a trend. It's not a trend. Inclusion can never be a trend. It should be, let's say, part of our lives, that we're used to it. The impact is, we'll go back to the intrinsic impact, because it is intrinsic, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes, and it's embedded with our psychology, and it takes some time to show the results, right? So let's not rush the results of monetizing inclusion. I think this is one mistake. And the other thing is that, yes, you should unpack it in a way to include it in your daily pillars, or in the value. Let's say this company, one of our values is inclusion. But if you do not find the inclusion with the person, for example, how you deal with those who let's say with the senior level leaders, with the employees, with the customers, with everyone, then it's just it's words. And this is, I think, the major risk. It shouldn't be a bubble that will fade later. It should be very well unpacked to an extent that it's included in our daily lives. Nowadays, it's funny, but my husband says, "You keep saying female empowerment. I swear, I'll start an organization for male empowerment. I'm tired of female."
Male empowerment at home.
At home.
How about doing the dishes and maybe taking the kids to school?
I told him
That's
now
where
let's identify it. So yes, we shouldn't reach to that extent. We should.
Yeah, I agree with you. Not a trend. Inclusion is a human right. It's for the benefit of the business and the community, and it's for the benefit of the society as it's evolving and developing. And I will come to my last question for you, which is, it's to impress the people, by the way. And I'm not sure if you can really answer that, but I would like to have your point of view of how do you foresee diversity and inclusion play a role in the business in the next 5 years? And let's talk about our region.
Me first. Next 5 years. I mean, I guess this is maybe not the perfect or good answer, but I think we are incredibly lucky in this region that the access to diversity and inclusion in the workforce is here. It's at our doorstep. It's at our all the resumes we get. I have no problems with receiving diverse resumes today. It was harder, in my view, 15 years ago, convincing women who are not from this region to recognize that this region is actually very good for women.
So much agree with you.
But that was the past now. I think that has changed, and I think social media and just the active voice that we have, and people moving here and then going back home and telling their friends and their family what a wonderful place it is very, very helpful. So we've gone over that hurdle. And I think from here on out, I just don't see the challenges in having diversity and inclusion here. Maybe that's a little too optimistic, but I think next 5, 15, we will only continue to accelerate.
So I love the optimism, because this is what we're striving for. So I take that as one point. Amr?
I totally agree with Sheila. If we're talking about UAE, but if you're talking region, depends on how you're defining region. Maybe because I work on 11 markets,
that's why you
like
say that.
Each and every market is different. If we're talking about UAE, then absolutely right. We're very lucky that we tick all the boxes of inclusion and diversity. At the same time, government, as you said before, is playing a great role in doing that, and opens our eyes and corporate eyes to follow their steps. If we look at the entire region, you need to dissect market by market. And few markets were way behind, and few markets were way too advanced because of the structure of the gender in the country. If I look, for example, of our office in Morocco, we're 90% women.
Wow.
Because the workforce there, the majority are women.
You need
If
to
I look-
diversify in Morocco.
Exactly.
We're doing great. So what? We're good. If I look, for example, at Lebanon office, it's women are more than 70% because the demographic there is different.
It's reflective of the demographic.
Yeah.
Of course.
If I look at Saudi, for example, we're attracting a lot of new nationalities that didn't happen before. We have a lot of Europeans, Americans, Asians, Asia-Pacific people who are coming eager to work in Saudi that we were used to struggle before. So again, it depends, but I think we're going with the right direction. And at least what I like is that, as you said before, we're not very aggressive and we're taking our time, not like Europe or the US, because when you go super fast, you might fall a little bit. So in this region, we're doing great.
Perfect. Okay, I like this approach that how different countries are part of this region, which is not one. It's you have to dissect it. Ragad.
Because we're talking about the region and because we're already mature and we're being mature in that regard, but I see two things. I see more females going into different sectors of the market. Let's say the petroleum sector here. It's now more females are going to the petroleum sector, to the engineering sector, aerospace. It was fintech before.
Yes.
Such industries, when we females hear of them, we go back a little bit and we say maybe it's not for us. No, this nowadays it's being more and more, and this is the first thing that I see. I see more ventures that are founded by females, because the let's say the nature of females nowadays, it's not only about how they're being educated, it's about how they're being passionate at a young age. So, and you know that that entrepreneurship is more risk-taking, is higher for younger age, and it is happening. Statistics are showing that now we have this year 50,000 females are working on 25,000 ventures with total value of $15 billion just in the UAE, which is very promising. And the third thing that I always I hope that happens. I see the mother and her daughter, 2 generations, starting up a business together, getting closer. I think it's a dream of, for me as a mom and for too many moms, we're trying to break this generation gap. We're trying to get closer, and it's happening nowadays. We're understanding them more. They're understanding us more. So this is how I see it.
I love the last point because I have 2 kids, 21 and 24, and they have expressed their interest to join me in my company, even my son. So I said, okay, I've done something good in my life here.
That's an achievement. Well,
did you interview them?
I'm very hard. They need to meet the prerequisites. With that, I would like to thank you very much, Ragad, Amer, Sheila, for the conversation today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed, and the audience here. Thank you for what you said today. Thank you how open you were, and thought-provoking ideas, and very clear how you see the future and how you see the present. And I would like to thank you all for being with us today here, the live audience in the room, but also on LinkedIn. And we'll see you soon in September with another episode of Inclusive Economy. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, nice meeting you.
Are we cut?
Very
That
good.
was okay.
Very good conversation.
Thank you, Aleni. That was really